let the offseason madness officially commence. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. Ladies and gentlemen, every year it feels like the Red Sox have somebody on the free agent market that makes you sweat a little bit, right? This year's going to be no different. After the end of the World Series, things are going to start to get really stressful here in Red Sox Nation with some of these free agents, and that starts with Alex Bregman, because we got some really big but unsurprising news about Alex Bregman's future with this Red Sox team last night. So what we are going to do in today's video is we're going to break this all down. We're going to break down what the news is. We're going to break down what this means for Bregman, what this means for the Red Sox, and ultimately what to expect over the course of the next, 3 months of the offseason. It's going to be a super interesting one. But we got to start with the actual news itself, because last night, Jon Heyman announced that Alex Bregman is going to be opting out of his contract. Now, normally, I would say we need to take Jon Heyman's word with a grain of salt here, but Heyman is essentially a mouthpiece for Scott Boras. And, well, Bregman being a Scott Boras client, it's pretty safe to assume that this is actually what's going to happen. So what does that mean? Well, right now it means that Alex Bregman is no longer a member of the Boston Red Sox. If the season were to start tomorrow, Alex Bregman would not be manning first base for this Red Sox team. Basically, all it means is that Alex Bregman is now free to sign with any ball club he wants. And that's a little bit of a scary thought for the Red Sox, but it's also not unsurprising, right? I think most people, including myself, including a lot of you guys, just sort of assumed that this was going to end up being a one-year deal when he inked that 3-year contract with an opt-out after every season, right? Or at the bare minimum, I think a lot of people expected this to maximum be a 2-year contract, right? This was Alex Bregman's plan all along. This was sort of a trial run with the Boston Red Sox. If he had even a remotely decent year at the plate, we all knew that Alex Bregman was going to be testing free agency again. And, well, he had a pretty decent year at the plate, I would say. It finished with a .273 average, a .360 on base percentage, and a .462 slug for an .821 OPS, a .128 OPS plus, his highest OPS plus since 2022. Now, there were some rough stretches, especially towards the end of the season here, but I would say overall, Alex Bregman was almost exclusively a net positive for this Red Sox team statistically. On top of that, he was a statistically solid defender over there at third base. However, the one thing I think that really sort of shone through this season, both here in Boston and on a national level, was how much of a leader Alex Bregman has become for the Boston Red Sox, right? I mean, there were multiple national articles, there were 10s, 20s, 30s of articles this season in the local media about just how impactful Alex Bregman was off the field. Alex Bregman became a real sort of national level mentor to a lot of these players on this team, and I think that's also an incredibly appealing thing that I'm assuming Alex Bregman wanted to come out of his time here in Boston, right? So you look at this and you say, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense that Bregman's trying to parlay this into a longer term deal. On top of that, you take a look at what the overall free agent market looks like this season. It's a bit top heavy, right? A lot of the names are kind of get pretty, I wouldn't say rough, but I would say mediocre pretty quickly after you get through the top 3, 4, 5 free agents, whatever you want to say here. On top of that, you also have the CBA agreements that are looking like it's going to end up in another lockout coming after the 2026 season. And on top of the CBA stuff, you also have to remember that Alex Bregman doesn't have a compensation pick attached to him this year, right? Last offseason, he wanted a longer term deal, but teams are a little bit wary of giving up big money and a pick to the Houston Astros. This year, there's nothing of that sort in this. So not only are you looking at a good statistical year, a great year off the field, an offseason where he instantly becomes one of the top 3, top 4 free agents position player-wise on the market, and a CBA agreement, but you also have the compensation pick. A whole lot of reasons why Alex Bregman is opting out here. But we also got to talk about what Alex Bregman wants and what a contract would potentially look like. However, before we break that down, we got to hear from today's sponsor. And of course, today's sponsor is DraftKings. And they have an absolutely fantastic offer for you right now on DraftKings. New customers who sign up using code REDSEAT and bet $5. If that bet hits, get $200 in bonus bet instantly. You can then stay in the action and use your bonus bets on DraftKings single game parlays at your shot at an even bigger payout. To take advantage of this fantastic offer, all you have to do is use code REDSEAT when you're signing up. Again, fantastic offer, code REDSEAT. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode. Please don't forget to gamble responsibly. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Let's get back to the video. In my opinion, the real reason Alex Bregman opted out of his deal this season isn't because he doesn't like Boston, isn't because he thinks Boston is cheap, and really honestly isn't because he wants to squeeze out as much money as humanly possible. That's what he hired Boris for, right? Boris will end up trying to squeeze out as much money as humanly possible. It's what you signed this agent to do. In terms of Bregman personally, I don't know that it's so much about all those things. In my opinion, what it's ultimately about is security. Right? This was what Alex Bregman wanted last season. Alex Bregman's not going to get $45, $50 million. He's not going to get an increase in AAV this time on the free agent market. It's just not going to happen, right? Unless some team gets so desperate enough that they're going to offer him $45, $50 million a year, he's most likely going to get market value, which is about $27 million right now, according to Spotrac. Now, obviously, teams, as we've seen this entire last couple of off seasons, are going to have to pretty much overpay for anyone they want on a free agent market. So that number is probably going to be a little bit higher than that, but it's still going to be significantly lower than $40 million. To me, this isn't about the money. It's about the years. And last year, that's what Alex Bregman wanted. He wanted to sign with a team that he was going to play for the rest of his career, right? You're 32 years old here. You're on sort of the tail end of your time here in Major League Baseball. You've got probably, I would say, maximum 8-10 years left, maybe, right? And that's if you have an incredibly fantastic second half of your career. Most likely, you've got less than 10 seasons left. Alex Bregman wants a contract that's going to allow him to sort of just settle into a team, settle into a city, and play out the rest of his career in. Now, I don't know how many years that's going to end up looking like, but you're probably looking at, in my opinion, 5-6 years max on a contract. In all reality, probably closer to that 5 years than it is to that 6 years. So what you're looking at, most likely for Alex Bregman, is probably 5 years, $27-ish million a season. Now, again, that number is most likely going to end up being higher. So let's say 5 years, $30-ish million a season, which, again, could actually end up being beneficial to the Red Sox, right? They're paying this guy $40 million a season. If you want to bring him back, this would allow you to spread out your AAV a little bit, right? Instead of allocating $40 million each year to Alex Bregman, you can allocate 30, and then, hey, we could take that 10 and we could turn it into a pitcher, or we could turn it into a, utility guy, or whatever you guys want to figure out after Alex Bregman. This could end up helping the Boston Red Sox. But then that begs the question, do the Red Sox want this guy back, and should they want this guy back? To answer that question pretty simply, yes. Yes, I think the Red Sox should want Alex Bregman back, especially because this most likely means that you're going to have to sacrifice years and not dollars to bring him back to the Boston Red Sox, right? In fact, you may end up saving yourself some money when it comes to the AAV of Alex Bregman. Here's my reasoning. First and foremost, like we talked about, he was a net positive for the Red Sox, both offensively and defensively. Yes, again, there were stretches this season that you could sit and point to and be like, this was an incredibly productive part of the season for Alex Bregman, but even when he was having those kind of incredibly unproductive parts of the season, he was still a league average hitter. Right, he was still a league average hitter with plus defense. And so if we're looking at, okay, if that's the floor of Alex Bregman going forward, that's still a productive player for the Boston Red Sox. But more importantly, in my opinion, while you may end up eating some of these years on this contract, what you get in terms of off-field value is going to make up for any sort of downfalls you may see in terms of on-field value, right? When was the last time we sat here and said the Red Sox had a true leader of this team? Over the past few seasons, there have been guys who have been, leader figures for the Boston Red Sox, I'll say, right? Chris Sale, when he was here, obviously a leader, but he was injured for most of the time that he was here outside of 2019 and beyond. Doesn't really count totally. I mean, Rob Refsnyder, you could consider a leader, but he was a utility guy. Trevor Story, kind of same situation as Sale, right? He is a leader. Problem is he wasn't on the field all that much. The real last leader of the Boston Red Sox was Xander Bogaerts, and I think you can make some arguments that the last leader of the Boston Red Sox was Dustin Pedroia. Right, so it's been a long time since the Red Sox truly had this sort of father figure, I'll say, to go to amongst this clubhouse. And I think that's unbelievably important over the course of these next few years. I mean, you're going to be relying, regardless of who you pick up in free agency or trade market or whatever this offseason, on the young core of this team. That is ultimately the focal point of the Boston Red Sox, right? Ceddanne Rafael, the Wilyer Abreu's, the Roman Anthony's, the Marcelo Myers, the Christian Campbell's, a combination of these guys. Those are going to be the future of this team. You need somebody who's going to be this sort of lighthouse for ships in the night. A guy who's going to be a leader on the field, a guy who's going to be a leader off the field, a guy who's going to be able to bring the best out of these young players. And I think Alex Bregman, more importantly than what he does on the field, is absolutely a gigantic part in doing that for this Red Sox team. You want this young core to develop into this sort of juggernaut, consistent winner that they keep talking about day in and day out. Alex Bregman is how you help them get there. And I think that's an unbelievably important thing that we need to remember. So not only are you getting a net positive on the field, you're getting way more than a net positive off the field. And to me, even though you're probably going to have to overpay for him, even though there's a large chance that by the end of this contract, you're eating the last year or the last 2 years, he's going to make up for it off the field in spades, right? I don't know if that's the correct phrasing, but you guys understand what I'm saying here, right? Alex Bregman needs to be on the Boston Red Sox. You traded Rafael Devers for this guy. You saw what he did for the culture of this team. He created winning culture in this clubhouse. He's done more for this team off the field than on the field, and he did a hell of a lot on the field. So, in my opinion, yes, no brainer, the Red Sox should want Alex Bregman back, but then the question becomes, who's their competition, right? Who are they going to be fighting for Alex Bregman's services? And that list could end up being kind of long. There are teams that have already been listed as suitors for Alex Bregman in this John Heyman article. He mentioned the Tigers, which makes sense considering they were the one team who was willing to give Alex Bregman what he wanted last year. He chose the Red Sox over them. Makes sense they'd be interested once again. You've got the Houston Astros were listed for some reason. Don't totally understand that with them having Jeremy Pena and Carlos Correa. Don't know where you'd put Alex Bregman, but I guess a reunion there is a potential possibility. They also listed the Kansas City Royals as a team, as a sleeper team specifically. I guess, right? I mean, it makes sense for the Royals to pick up a guy like this. I don't know if they're going to be able to fully dive in money-wise to some of the teams that are going to be wanting him. And then the Blue Jays is another team that has been mentioned quite a bit, which I could absolutely see and would absolutely suck. But you're obviously going to see some other teams mixed in here as well, right? I think the Yankees will probably give him a look, which would be pretty much my worst nightmare. I think there could be other teams out there that could end up being sort of these sleeper out of nowhere names that Alex Bregman attaches himself to. But the good news here is that overwhelmingly many analysts, I would say almost every analyst, is still predicting that Alex Bregman ends up back on this Red Sox team. Look, I think there are going to be some people out there that don't want Alex Bregman back, and in my opinion, it's for either one of two reasons. Either one, you didn't really pay attention to what Alex Bregman actually brought to the Boston Red Sox, or two, you think that in order to get him back, it's going to have to be $40 million a year for the next 5 years. And I don't think either of those are incredibly true, but I respect the opinion. I just think you're wrong, right? And to be honest with you, I think this is going to be incredibly stressful. I think if you're a Red Sox fan, you should want Alex Bregman back, and you should be prepared for it to feel like there's no chance in hell Alex Bregman's coming back. That's what Scott Boras does best, right? He panders to the public better than any other agent out there ever, right? I mean, there were times where he made it look like Juan Soto was coming to this Red Sox team, right? That's just who he is, and that's how he plays the game. So for the next 3 or 4 months here, we're going to be sitting there saying, week to week, basically, it feels like Bregman's a lock to come back to the Red Sox. It feels like Bregman's a lock to go somewhere else. And until the dust is settled here, that's exactly how we're going to have to work it. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be kind of fun, but it's going to be stressful. The big thing for me with this Red Sox team is that while they should be looking to get Bregman back, and that should be their number one plan, the best thing that they can do right now is also have a plan B. They can't go into this offseason assuming Bregman's coming back with no other options on the table. If that ends up being the case, I think you could end up with a really, really bad offseason for the Red Sox. Last offseason, they wanted Max Fried. They didn't get Max Fried, so they immediately pivoted to Garrett Crochet. I would honestly say Crochet ended up being better than what Max Fried would have been able to give you at Fenway Park. At the deadline this year, they also wanted Joe Ryan, and they didn't get Joe Ryan. They ended up with Dustin May, and well, we all exactly know how that ended up going for this Red Sox team, right? You need to be able to do the Crochet thing and not the Dustin May thing with Alex Bregman here, and that's incredibly important to remember too. Even if you don't get Bregman, this offseason isn't over. This doesn't mean that the team is crushed or going to be worse than last year. You just need to be able to pivot correctly. So, a couple of things to pay attention to, but I want your opinion, your immediate reaction to Alex Bregman opting out. Are you happy? Are you sad? Where do you think he ends up? And are you confident the Red Sox can bring him back? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.